Tonight's video has 3 disturbing real food delivery horror stories. The first happened during one of those app delivery weekends where every order blurs into the next, and the only thing keeping you moving is the idea that the next tip might finally make the night worth it. I was doing deliveries on a Friday in early November, mostly bouncing between 2 burger places, a Mexican spot, and the same 20-minute ring of apartment complexes and subdivisions around my town. By midnight, I had been in and out of my car so many times, my knees were starting to ache every time I stood up. I remember thinking I would finish one more order and then log off. The order that changed my mind came in at 12:17 a.m. from a chicken place that was still open near the highway. Small order. 1 combo meal, a drink, and extra sauce. The delivery note said, "Do not knock, bring to side entrance, cash tip if you wait." That was not unheard of. People did weird things with delivery notes all the time. Parents did not want babies woken up. Roommates did not want dogs barking. People sneaking food into houses after midnight loved the no-knock note. The address was an old duplex on a street I almost never delivered to because most of the houses there had been broken into separate units years ago. The block had bad lighting and the porches all looked too deep, like they swallowed the little bit of street glow that made it that far. When I pulled up, the front of the place was completely dark. No porch light, no TV glow through the blinds. Just one weak yellow bulb shining from a narrow side path between that duplex and the house next to it. I texted through the app that I had arrived. A reply came back almost immediately. Side door, come all the way down, tip inside. That wording bothered me a little, but I had already picked the food up and I was standing there like an idiot in my own headlights. So I grabbed the bag and walked down the side path. The light over the side entrance was not really over a door. It hung above a little enclosed mudroom added onto the back of the duplex at some point. There were old shoes on the floor inside, a washer and dryer along one wall, and another closed door leading into the actual apartment. The outer screen door was propped open. I stopped at the step and said, "Delivery." Nobody answered. Then my phone buzzed. Set it on the dryer. Getting your tip. I should have left it on the step and walked away. That is the decision I keep replaying. But at that point, it still felt just normal enough to explain. The bag was hot and the ground was damp. I stepped 1 foot inside and put the order on top of the dryer. The smell hit me right away. Not a dead animal smell, not rot exactly. Just a heavy, stale odor like wet carpet, old food, and a room that had been shut too long. It felt trapped in the air. I said thanks and started to back out. Then I noticed 3 other takeout bags lined up neatly along the wall beside the washer. Not from the same restaurant. Different places, different receipt sizes. One of them had a timestamp from less than an hour earlier. My first thought was that maybe I had the wrong unit and this person had been ordering all night. My second thought was that nobody who had been eating all night needed to promise a cash tip to get a driver 1 step farther inside their mudroom. Before I could leave, I heard something behind the inner door. It was soft, not a full voice, more like a quick whisper followed by a sound like a chair leg dragging across the floor. I froze. Then a man on the other side of the door said, "Just 1 second." The voice was calm, almost cheerful. Too calm. I backed out onto the step and said, "No problem, just leave it in the app." My phone buzzed again before I had even reached the side path. "Come back, cash tip." I kept walking. Then the inner door opened behind me. I did not turn all the way around. I only looked enough to catch the movement in the corner of my eye. A tall man stood inside the dim apartment, not stepping into the light, just holding the door and looking at me. He said, "You were supposed to wait." I mumbled something about another delivery and kept moving toward the street. I could hear him behind me for 3 or 4 steps, slow and deliberate on the concrete path, before he stopped. I got in my car, locked the doors, and drove off without marking the order complete. A block away, I pulled over and called support. I told them the customer had tried to lure me into the house and that something felt wrong about the place. The support agent did the usual script, asked if I was safe now, then told me they would document the report and cancel the order from their end. I figured that was the end of it. Then my phone started ringing from an unknown number. I did not answer. The same number called again, then a 3rd time. After that, I got a text that just said, "You forgot the tip." I pulled into a gas station and sat under the bright canopy while I blocked the number. The next afternoon, I got an email from the app saying the order from that address had been associated with suspicious activity and the account had been disabled pending investigation. No details, no explanation. That should have made me feel better, but it did not. 3 nights later, I was doing deliveries again, because rent does not care whether something scares you once. I got an order from a pizza place, and while I was waiting, another driver came in complaining to the cashier about a creepy side door drop-off in an old duplex where the customer kept promising a cash tip if he came farther inside. I asked him what street. He told me. Same block, same house. The second story happened to me when I was still working for a pizza place instead of doing app deliveries. It was one of those jobs where the pay looked decent on paper until you realized half your earnings disappeared into gas repairs, and the kind of silent stress that settles in when every shift keeps you alone in the car until after midnight. I had the closing shift on a Tuesday, which usually meant the last hour dragged because hardly anybody ordered that late on weekdays. Around 11:40 p.m., right when I thought I was going to get to sweep up and head home early, an order came in for 2 large pizzas, breadsticks, and a 2-liter. The address was technically inside our zone, but barely. It was attached to a little strip of industrial buildings and auto shops on the far edge of town where the roads got wider and emptier and the streetlights thinned out fast. Most of the businesses over there closed by 6. When I put the address into the store GPS, the route looked odd. Instead of leading me to the front of one of the businesses, it looped me behind a closed gas station and then down a narrow service road that ran parallel to the highway. I asked my manager if he recognized the address. He did not. He shrugged and said it was probably one of those businesses with the office in the back. The customer had prepaid, so there was no reason for me not to go. Still, before I left, I called the number on the ticket just to confirm directions, straight to voicemail. As soon as I got in the car, I received a text from the same number. Maps sends everyone to the wrong side. Keep going behind the gas station. No headlights when you turn in. That was enough to make me stop with the key half turned. I read the message twice, then went back inside and showed my manager. He laughed the way people do when something unsettles them, but they do not want to admit it. He told me to just keep the headlights on anyway, and if nobody came out, bring the order back. So I drove. The front side of the gas station looked abandoned, even though the pumps still had prices lit up. The convenience store windows were black. A chain hung loosely across the driveway on the side, but one end had been unhooked just enough for a car to slip around it. That was where the GPS wanted me to go. I should have taken that as my answer. Instead, I edged around the chain and kept moving. The service road behind the station was barely a road at all, more like a strip of broken asphalt with weeds coming through the cracks. On one side was the rear wall of the gas station and a row of dumpsters. On the other side was a dark lot bordered by a wire fence and a few loading docks belonging to the auto shops farther down. No lights. No office signs. No visible address numbers. I slowed to almost nothing and called the customer again. This time he answered on the second ring. He did not say hello. He just said, "Keep coming." I asked where exactly he was. He said, "I can see your car." Then he hung up. My stomach dropped so fast it felt physical. I looked ahead and finally noticed a dark van parked sideways near the far loading dock, positioned in a way that blocked most of the road past it. I had not seen it at first because its lights were off and it blended into the shadows. Then a second shape moved beside it. A person, maybe 2 people. I could not tell at first because they were standing close together. One of them raised an arm and waved me forward. I put the car in reverse immediately. At the exact same second, my phone buzzed with another text. Wrong way. Closer. I did not need any more information after that. I reversed faster than I should have on that cracked road, bouncing hard enough to send the soda rolling off the passenger seat. I got halfway back toward the gas station before headlights flared on behind me. The van, it lurched forward so fast I thought for a second they were going to ram me before I could get back around the chain. That was the only truly panicked driving I have ever done in my life. I hit the gas, cut too tight around the unhooked chain, and heard something scrape along the side of my car as I shot back into the gas station lot. The van followed me up to the edge of the property and then stopped. Not because traffic blocked it, not because anybody saw. It just stopped there with the lights on, like whoever was inside had decided that chasing me into the street would be too visible. I drove straight back to the store. My manager was waiting by the front window because I had called him while I was still shaking and told him to watch for me. He went outside with me to check the passenger side. There was a long white scrape over the rear door and quarter panel, plus a dent near the handle. We called the police. An officer came out, took the information, and got very serious as soon as I mentioned the service road behind the gas station. He asked whether the customer had tried to get me to kill my headlights before turning in. I told him yes. He looked at my manager and said, "That is not the first time we have heard that." Apparently, there had been 2 attempted robberies in that same area over the previous month involving delivery drivers and 1 rideshare driver. The setup was almost always the same. Real order, real phone number. Weird delivery note. Dark service area. 1 person to guide the car in and at least 1 other waiting where the driver could not see them until it was too late. The part that still bothers me is that the pizzas were real. Somebody paid for them. Somebody planned that whole thing far enough in advance to know a driver would show up carrying cash, food, and a phone, alone, near midnight, in a place where nobody would hear a shout. After that, the store changed policy. No backlot deliveries. No closed commercial addresses after dark. No customer instructions telling drivers to kill headlights or approach from the rear of a building. but policies only happen after somebody gets close enough to teach the lesson. The last story is the one I'm least comfortable telling because I still cannot explain all of it in a way that feels satisfying. When people hear that, they usually assume I mean it was a ghost story. It was not, at least I do not think it was. I think it was one of those nights where several small wrong things stacked on top of each other until the whole situation felt impossible. This was during a week of heavy rain, when I had been doing app deliveries after my regular job, because everything else had gotten more expensive, and the weather actually made orders busier. People did not want to leave their apartments, so the offers kept coming. The order was from a Thai place a little after 12:30 a.m. 3 entrees, soup, and a tea. Good payout. The address was a mid-rise apartment building downtown, the kind with a locked front lobby and a call box that barely worked even when it was dry. The delivery note said, "No contact, leave at 4:07, do not knock, text only." That was normal enough. The strange part started when I parked. The building had 8 or 9 lit windows on the front, but the 4th floor was almost entirely dark, except for one pale rectangle near the end of the hall-facing side. It was not a room light exactly, more like light spilling out of a partly open door. I texted that I had arrived. The reply came back immediately. "Come up, door is already unlocked. Most no-contact orders do not want you coming upstairs at all. They want the lobby bench or the front vestibule." I stood under the awning for a second with the food in my hand, deciding whether I wanted to push it. The rain was coming down hard enough that leaving the order outside would have ruined it, so I tried the front door. It opened, no buzzer, no one speaking through the box, just unlocked. Inside, the lobby lights were dim, and one of the elevators was out of service with a handwritten sign taped over the button. The hall smelled like wet carpet and old cooking oil. I texted again to confirm I was coming up. Another instant reply. "Please hurry." The elevator crawled to the 4th floor and opened onto a hallway with half the ceiling lights turned off for the night. The apartment number started with 401 near the elevator and ran down toward the far end. 407 was the second to last door on the left. It was cracked open maybe an inch. Sitting on the floor outside it were 2 empty drink carriers and a folded paper bag from another restaurant that looked damp like it had been there for hours. That alone was enough to put me on edge. I texted that I was outside 407 and set the food down carefully by the threshold. No response. I waited maybe 10 seconds. Still nothing. Then a door farther down the hall opened a sliver. An older man in a white undershirt looked out from 409 and said, "Do not leave that there." I turned toward him and asked if 407 was the right unit. He looked directly at the cracked door, then back at me, and said, "That unit is supposed to be empty." Before I could answer, my phone buzzed from the customer closer. Just that one word. I picked the bag back up without thinking. The old man at 409 stepped 1 foot into the hall and said, "Who are you talking to?" I showed him the order screen and asked if maybe the tenant had just moved in. He shook his head immediately. "No. Nobody has been in there all week. Manager changed the lock Tuesday." As if the timing had been waiting for that sentence, the gap in 407 widened. Not much. Just enough to go from clearly cracked to clearly moving. No hand on the knob. No face in the opening. Only darkness and the sound of something inside brushing lightly against the floor. My phone buzzed again. "I can see both of you." The old man read my face before I even turned the screen toward him. He pulled his own door open wider and said, "Bring that in here." I did not argue. I carried the food into 409 and he shut the door fast behind me. His apartment was tiny but brightly lit, and the normalness of it almost made me dizzy. TV on low volume, half-finished crossword on the table, a fan rattling in the corner. He locked the door and told me to call building management. I told him management probably was not answering after midnight. He said then call the police. While I was doing that, my phone buzzed a 3rd time. "Thank you for bringing it up." A second later came another one. "You were not supposed to stop at 409. That was enough for the old man. He grabbed his own phone and called the super directly. Apparently he had the guy's personal number because he had lived there forever. The super actually answered. He sounded confused at first, then irritated, then fully awake when the old man told him somebody was texting a delivery driver from inside a unit that was supposed to be locked and vacant. The super arrived about 20 minutes later with building security. By then the police had not shown up yet, probably because weird food delivery call in an apartment hallway was not exactly their top priority on a stormy night. The super had a ring of keys and a flashlight. He unlocked 407 in front of us while standing slightly to one side like he expected somebody to rush him. The apartment was empty. Not empty, the way people say a room feels empty, actually empty. No furniture, no curtains, no food, no wet footprints, no person hiding behind the bathroom door, but on the floor just inside the entrance were 3 things. An old paper takeout menu from the Thai place, a plastic soup container lid, and a receipt with that night's order number printed on it, my order number. The bag I had carried upstairs was still in 409 with the older man. I checked immediately to make sure I had not imagined the whole thing or confused two orders somehow. Everything matched, same customer name, same order number. The super kept saying that was impossible because the lock had been changed and the unit had been empty since a pipe burst in the bathroom the previous week. Building security pulled the call box logs and found that nobody had buzzed me in from 407. The front door had simply been left unlatched. The account used for the order disappeared from the app by the next morning. Support refunded it, thanked me for the report, and gave me one of those polite canned responses that basically says something strange happened and they are not going to tell you anything else. A few days later, I got another order for that same building. Different restaurant, different customer, different unit. I almost declined it, but it was daylight and I told myself I was being ridiculous. When I pulled up, the older man from 409 was outside smoking under the awning. He recognized me right away. Before I even got out of the car, he walked over and asked if I was still doing deliveries at night. I said sometimes. He nodded toward the fourth floor windows and said, "If you come back after dark, and if anybody ever tells you to bring food to 407 again, do not take it upstairs." I asked him if the unit had been rented out yet. He said no. Then he looked at the bag on my passenger seat and added, "And do not trust the delivery notes if they tell you the front door is already unlocked." That was enough for me. I still order delivery all the time, but I do not do late-night drop-offs anymore. If a side hustle leaves you checking every dark porch before you get out of the car, listening at every half-open doorway, and wondering who wrote the note asking you to come a little farther in, it stops being extra money and starts becoming something else.